we are all being faced with the biggest choice of our lives, both personally and collective these days. And the choice is really the path of integration or disintegration. For those that are willing to do the hard work, the personal work, and the integrative work of connecting all the parts of the self, all the sort of the runaway parts of ourselves that get sort of scared when we face trauma, shock, disappointment. The reward is a life of peace, inner peace and coherence. And of course, if we choose that path, we are helping the collective, we are helping humanity as a whole.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode on the Abundant Living Ecuador podcast series. And today I am coming to you with another interview of health and wellness practitioners who live here in the Valley of Vilcabamba and who will be participating in our October 2023 health retreat that we're having that is 21 days long. So it is my honor to welcome Silvana Spano and Patrick Coady. Thank you so much for being here on this Zoom call today with me.
Thank you, Chiyoko.
Thanks for having us.
And I'll check in real briefly before I give an introduction overview. You are elsewhere in Ecuador, which is why we're not doing this at one of our homes or a lovely place in Vilcabamba Valley. So you're traveling elsewhere in Ecuador, is that right?
That's right.
The country has so many beautiful locations to offer. So we wanted to get this content, this interview out to our viewers as soon as possible, not wait for the travels to bring you back to Vilcabamba, because we're really excited for this health and wellness retreat that we're having. And again, the practitioners who are in the Valley of Vilcabamba, that's really what my interview series is all about. These practitioners are extraordinary. They're world renowned. They have international clientele, and they've been doing their craft, their work for many decades. And I can't wait to get into what the offerings or modalities are or areas of passion and interest that both of you have. And I'd love to just give a brief overview, if that's okay with you too, about you each, and then we'll hear it all in your words.
That sounds great.
Wonderful.
Amazing. So I will say, Silvana and Patrick, you're both holistic wellness practitioners, right? That is the self-identified category and the broad area that your expertise falls within. It's about holistic wellness. And the two of you had operated one of the most successful wellness centers in Ecuador from 2012 to 2020. And this really helps support expats with the range of needs. And we know a lot of folks that are watching this video, they are indeed expats in the States, Canada, Europe, perhaps thinking about coming down to Ecuador. So your specialty area was with folks just like that. And I know since then, since 2020, you've worked online and in person through the current practice, which your practice is called Holistic Wellness Solutions. And
Yes.
Yes, Silvana, you are a psychotherapist and health coach, and your master's, the thesis is in holism. And I'm very excited to hear both of you speak about holism. And Patrick, your background includes naturopathy, integrative health coaching, and functional blood chemistry analysis. I had to read that to get that exactly right. And I'd like to speak to all of those things because it's important. And like I said before, I know these aren't new areas of practice for you both. You've really, and in my time getting to know you, you've really brought all of these methodologies and systems into a place that truly feels like wholeness to me. And we can get into that as well. Like what does wholeness mean? You know, we hear that word a lot, holistic living, a wholeness lifestyle, but I'd love to hear from your perspective what wholeness really means to you and what the inspiration is there. So if this sounds good, Silvana, I'd love to kick off with you, or maybe there's anything that the both of you might want to share in this moment before we go deeper into Silvana, your work and your practice.
Okay, no, that's great. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Well, I think a great place to start is for first me to remind, I'm going to remind the audience of something that I forgot to say earlier. So bear with me here, this little side note. Before we get into your background, Silvana, but as everyone who's watching this right now that you know what this interview is going to be about, what we're featuring. If you like this content, please make sure that you subscribe to the Abundant Living Ecuador YouTube channel, like the video, and hit that little bell, because that way you get notifications when we have more amazing interviews just like this one. So all of that said, now that we have our audience captured and riveted and awaiting, Silvana, I'd love to hear in your words, if you can describe, a bit about your background and your practice. It'd be real nice just to hear the perspective that you're coming from.
I'd love to. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Silvana Spano. I'm Argentinian Canadian. And by now, I've lived about half of my life in Canada and the other half in Latin America. I'm a clinical counselor, holistic health practitioner, writer, and instructor with a BA in psychology from Canada and a master's in counseling psychology from the United States. And I also have a long list of additional training in holistic health and healing techniques, both physical and non-physical. My master thesis, as you mentioned, was strongly rooted in the holistic perspective and on first-hand field research that I did to better understand what this really means when we apply it to health and healing at all levels. So as a health coach and practitioner, I combine my formal studies with hands-on clinical training and what I learned during an apprenticeship in Indigenous holistic healthcare that I did years ago in the highlands of Guatemala with the Mayan people. So I work with all clients, but I have to say that I have a special interest in women's health and well-being, including emotional, cognitive, and hormonal balance. And as a counselor, I focus on guiding my clients to find empowerment and inner liberation from perceived limitations. I'm a strong believer in personal sovereignty and personal responsibility, as well as in the power of inner growth at any stage of life. And not surprisingly, I'm very interested in psychospiritual, energetic, and cultural issues, which apply to all of us. So my chosen modalities include techniques from energy psychology, shamanic techniques, nutrition, some techniques that come from the naturopathic and herbal traditions, and more. I'm a passionate teacher, counselor, and holistic health consultant. And I have training and experience in Reiki, ThetaHealing, Psych-K, Mayan Therapies, and other shamanic therapies. And I'm also a practitioner and instructor in the healing art of the Indigenous Guarani people of South America. This is a powerful 6,000-year-old tradition known as Ama-Deus. And overall, I believe in merging heart and well-informed, consciously integrated knowledge to create the solutions that we need and our world needs these days. So that's basically what I do.
So thank you for that. And I must say, I don't think there is anything basic about what you just described, about that wide spectrum of modalities. And I have so many questions. I know, Patrick, we got to get to topics about you, but I would love to just ask, Silvana, if I can, just a couple interesting points. There's so much that's interesting, but if I could just pull on a few threads here that came up for me, and I'd imagine people listening to this, it is with complete, impressive list that you have of all these different areas of practice and expertise. And it really ranges from the Western medical, more traditional, scholarly, to the out there, what some people might call. And by the way, the out there is my kind of thing. I sort of live in the out there. That's what I really love. But there's the psychospiritual, there's the shamanic, there's the Reiki, and I'm kind of going through the spectrum as we get a bit more conservative. And do you feel that, how has the experience been for you to try and blend those systems? How has that been challenging? Has it been extraordinarily wonderful? Because you get some people, I would imagine, who would be challenged by a doctor medical, and then more shamanic spiritual healing. Like, how do you find this blend?
Yes. Well, it's been both. It's been challenging and fascinating. And of course, as a therapist and as a coach, I can also adapt to my clients' needs. So as I establish the therapeutic relationship, I get a good feeling for what people need and whether they're more comfortable with the more Western approach or the out there approach. And what I found out over the years is that there's a lot of overlapping concepts. The language may be different, but if you translate from one way of speaking to another, the concepts most of us can understand and feel comfortable with.
I've found that often in my work as well. I've done some coaching of different varieties, and you learn the different systems. And I've thought to myself, hold on a minute, this is the same system, different costume. It's a different flavor. And I think there's actually beauty in that, because there's not one right system for everybody. Everybody's different, and everyone's sensibility is different. And if you can find the right system or two systems that match someone and they feel deeply connected to it in their heart, that they're going on this approach with the Reiki healing, or maybe it's the holistic nutrition coaching, if their heart feels truth in that system, that's really where healing begins, I feel. And it's amazing that you can guide a variety of different approaches.
Absolutely. And they also complement each other. They have each tradition has its strength and its weaknesses. And it's awesome to be able to integrate both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm thinking I might have just one more question for you, Silvana, because it's a burning question and I want to hear about it. And then Patrick, I might after that swap to you and have you give a bit of an overview about yourself, your work, and then maybe we'll come full circle about the retreat in Vilcabamba and speak about what some of the experiences with both of you would look like for attendees of the retreat. How does that sound?
That's great.
Amazing. Okay. And Silvana, please also, in addition to my question here, please feel free to expand upon any of the areas that, you feel called to. One area that really stood out to me is about this Indigenous work and your draw to South America and your immersion to be able to go into Guatemala, I believe you said it, and to study with Indigenous peoples or First Nations peoples and understand their way of medicine. My sense is you have to really understand their way of culture, the psychology, the way of society operating. And how in the world did you find yourself there? Why Guatemala? And what does this mean to you today?
Yes, well, it was a big adventure. So I've had experiences and learning from the Indigenous both in Central and South America. I feel like all of Latin America is my home. I'm from Argentina, but I left at the age of 17. And then after that, I just became sort of Latin American more than anything else. And my adventure in Guatemala started, I was backpacking through the area and I met an Indigenous woman that said to me, I recognize you somehow, and if you can come back and take your time to be here and spend time with me, I will teach you everything I know. And I just couldn't believe my ears. And so I I went home to Canada and I proposed to my university. I was doing my master's at the time, and I proposed to them that if they could approve a research, I could do my thesis work in Guatemala, while also doing the apprenticeship with this lady, with this curandera, this traditional healer. And they considered it and they did it. And so my days were spent doing the research in the morning with her clients, with her patients, asking them research questions, trying to understand why they had come to see her, what happened there, what the outcome was of their time with her. And then the rest of the day until late at night, I did my apprenticeship. And and so it was amazing, very rich, very intense. And that's how it happened.
Wow. And how would you describe the what you pull forth from that experience into your practices today? Have you put your sort of interpretation on it for more Western-minded people to be able to understand it? Is there some like authentic, very specific practices that you bring, modalities you bring forward?
Both. There's some very specific practices that they shared with me and with a friend who ended up doing the apprenticeship with me at the same time. And there's also more general concepts that I learned, not even by them teaching me, but by absorbing what I saw, how they lived, how they worked. And then, of course, there's some more general shamanic concepts that are not exclusive to the Mayans. They are really universal, shamanistic concepts and approaches to healing. So it's a little bit of everything. But my thesis work, especially the conclusion, is about comparing and contrasting different aspects of the traditional shamanic perspective to the Western healing perspective in general, which includes everything. It includes medicine, psychology, all ways of healing. And so what I did is I tried to identify the strength and the weaknesses and highlight them both and talk about how we can learn from each other, because it's really not just one side. It's not that we need to learn everything from them and they have nothing to learn from us, and vice versa, no question about it.
I really feel resonant with what you're saying. And the way I speak about wholeness is really just that. It's not about there's only one way. It's everyone's playing a part of the whole picture, and we all need each other. Every culture actually is integral to this bigger picture. And everyone in their lifestyle, you kind of have to figure out what's your balance with your wholeness and what influences from perhaps different cultures, different mediums could be right for you in your Western life, and finding that way to work with it all. So that's incredible. Is there anything else you want to mention in this moment? Because we'll be coming back to you and having an open dialogue before I transition to asking Patrick some questions about himself.
Just to highlight what you said, we expand each other culturally, and we think of it as different cultures, and also a more traditional way of living that the Mayans in this case have, that is very connected to the past, to ancestry, to the earth, to history, compared to our sort of very modern and even super modern, postmodern world. They both sides have so much to offer, and we really can help each other grow in perspective and finding ways of living that are much more fulfilling and healthier for all of us.
It's really wonderfully said. Thank you for that. And I feel it. And, kind of at the end of the day, what you two are doing, and me and a lot of other people that are either practitioners or facilitators in some way of the wellness journey for others, we're just trying to enable people to be at their highest selves, their healthiest selves, the happiest self, and the highest self. And if there's different modalities, I do think there is so much wisdom that people could benefit from that they're not accessing for some reason. Maybe they are ignorant and don't realize how meaningful it could be to them, or maybe they're just not exposed to it. Or even a bit judgmental, like, oh, how's that's going to help me? I live in San Francisco. Like, how's the jungle thing going to help me? And I think what you're able to do is offer people access into a new perspective of how they can heal themselves. And often it's not like, no one can heal somebody else, but you can help them on their journey to find their centered wholeness.
Exactly.
Beautiful. I'm so excited for everything that you guys are doing. It's so up my alley. I love this stuff. And it's exciting. And Patrick, I want to put the spotlight on you for this part of the conversation. And just to kick things off and just say, I'm really loving seeing the both of you together. I know your work complements, each other, but you both have very specific areas of enjoyment, expertise, and passion. So if you would like to just describe, yourself, your work in a way that feels most beneficial to people who are watching this video and curious, I'd love to hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Patrick Coady. My path to becoming a full-time health practitioner has been non-traditional, to say the least. In my 20s, I was an all-natural bodybuilder, and to better achieve my goals, I wanted to study diet and nutrition. So during this time, I had the privilege of receiving direction from Dr. John Mattson, who was one of the top naturopaths in the world at the time, and definitely one of the pioneers of naturopathy. Mattson is the author of many important books in the field, and he was also one of the naturopaths that developed the initial curriculum for naturopathic colleges. And boy, I tell you, after receiving direction from him, and an expert at his level, to me, it was clear that this was the best way for me to move forward with my health and wellness goals. And it didn't take long before I started helping my friends and family, and with what I was learning. And I basically began health coaching before the term was even being used. So after a while, I started taking training.
You're such a trendsetter, Patrick. You made health coaching cool. You put it on the map. Thank you for that. I'm a health coach as well, so thank you. You paved the way.
It was great, because then I started hearing it. I'm using the term now.
That's what I am.
That's what I am. I started, through this process, I started taking lots of courses and training and more direction from pioneers in the field. And some of the ones that were maybe the most impactful were Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and Dr. Peter Osborne. Yeah. And things, I think, really changed when I went full-time supporting people with their health and wellness. This is when I added training into holism. And Silvana was very impactful in my direction in this regard. She was instrumental in allowing me to realize how deep this subject is and how important. I continued to take courses and training, including integrative nutrition health coaching, microcurrent, laser, and a number of other modalities. But, things really transformed when I was introduced in 2012 to something called functional blood chemistry analysis. And this was really a game changer. I didn't realize that there was this way to interpret blood, and it transformed the rest of my practice. And
you have a few slides.
Have some slides I can show.
Absolutely. We'll get to, because I know, Silvana, you have slides as well that you want to share, right, about the work. So maybe we'll do a little bit of tag teaming for the slides that show this, and which is really exciting, because I think that there's such a, depth to each of these areas of modality, or industry expertise that you each have. It would be really nice for people to see some orientation visually that you're going to be presenting. And Patrick, maybe before we jump to the slides, like what was, I guess, the initial draw, or so now having done this blood work analysis for quite some time, what's the biggest wow factor that keeps you interested in doing this kind of blood work?
There is just so much growth in that field right now. Just to give you an example, in the last 2 years alone, there have been massive changes in the optimal range interpretation of a range of blood tests. So everyone's learning in the world, and everyone's contributing to the body of knowledge of functional blood chemistry analysis. And so there are some real pioneers, and it's changed dramatically since 2012. There's so much to learn all the time, and it is so impactful. The difference between, for instance, someone who gets a blood test from their doctor, and they look at it and they say, "Oh, well, your blood sugar's a bit high, John, but you'll live," and that's it. That's the extent of the feedback you get. And I can take the same blood test and write a 25-page report, and it maps out, all the different imbalances in different organs and systems, how long they've been at play, what the level of risk is, what kind of impact it's having mentally and emotionally, and what things you can look forward to on that path in the future. So it's just a very exciting field that's continuing to grow.
Yeah, blood doesn't lie.
Blood doesn't lie. Yeah.
Blood doesn't lie. If you know how to read it, there's so much information. Patrick is fascinated with this field, and I have seen the benefit that it has given to so many of our clients.
Really adding, again, I might sound like a broken record, but wholeness keeps coming to my mind here, to be able to look at something what's traditionally called very scientific, right? This is blood work analysis, and it is data. And thank goodness for science, because my gosh, look at what it's able to inform you of. Yeah. And thank goodness for the shamanic traditions for centuries that have been helping people on a spiritual plane heal, because having this breadth of attention to someone's wellness journey and wellness path, my perspective and philosophy in life is like, you need to go into these different areas. And for you, Patrick, to go into that kind of scientific depth and get granular, it's almost like a little, like a portal way into information bank about that person, to be able to assist them at that level of accuracy to help them on their healing.
Yes. Yeah, it really is.
And of course, functional blood chemistry analysis is based on data from many people. So it is scientific. And in some ways, so is shamanism, because it's based on a bank of information as well. It's basically clinical information about what has worked, what has actually gotten people out of certain states and helped them achieve balance. It is also a form of inquiry. You're observing what works and what doesn't in a hands-on, very personal, very clinical setting. And that's a form of science too.
Absolutely. The shamanic scientist. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I'm positive there are many people out there that will deeply resonate with what you just said, or what you both just said, because I'm a big studier of yoga philosophy. And one of the opening passages of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Swami Satchidananda is that yoga is science of the mind. And many people are confused by that, really shocked. But a lot of folks say, yes, it is a science of the mind. From thousands of years ago, they understood what it could do for the body. And that's my area of passion. And Silvana, I feel that for what you're saying about shamanism. That's not my area of expertise or experience. I've worked with shamans before, but that's not my modality. So I can relate to that a lot.
Wonderful. I like what you're saying, because if we can just remember that science is a methodology of observation and inquiry. There's yoga does that, shamanism does that, and modern science does that in some cases.
I have to make a joke here, and it's like I'm being a little serious, but I'm just kidding, but not really kidding. I joke that modern scientists with the sophisticated, evolution are finally catching up to what yogis knew 4,000 years ago actually works. And they study meditation and they have clinical lab reports of what meditation can do to the brain waves. It's like they've scientifically proved that meditation is beneficial. And it's like, yeah, no, humans have been onto that for a really long time before the little machines that measure the brain waves. But again, kind of going back to Patrick's blood work, like it's all good. It's all needed. It's all part of the wholeness to have the
Right.
modern science. Yeah, exactly. And so thank you for that nod to the scientific way of our ancestors. We're all related somehow, and people who hold this ancient wisdom and knowledge for many generations. And from here, I'm wondering, I know both of you have some slides that you'd like to speak to. Why don't you decide amongst yourselves who could share first and just kind of speak to that other inspiring part? So Silvana, would you want to share yours? Okay, amazing.
So let's see. Let's
Okay.
share the slide.
Okay, so here we go. We have our slides up here, and Silvana, I'd love to hand it over to you. Tell us, what was it like you wanted to share?
Okay. Well, first I wanted to share what our website looks like in case somebody's interested in checking us out through our Holistic Wellness Solutions website, even before the conference in October. So when you go to holisticwellness.solutions, this is what you see. You see this page, and yeah, this is sort of our motto that you see in the middle here: get practical guidance, receive caring support, and recover naturally. And there's several tabs that you can look into: testimonials, there's a blog, a little bit of everything. Okay, and so I wanted to show you our names on the screen: Silvana Spano and Patrick Coady. In case you're wondering how to spell our names or wanting to look us up, this is our email address. You can write to us here, contact us at info@globalwellness.solutions. Global Wellness Solutions is our umbrella company, our bigger company, under which Holistic Wellness Solutions operate. And yeah, after that, I can get into the holistic approach a little bit again. Yeah, because I have seen that everything is definitely connected to everything else. I have seen this over and over in my practice and in my life in general. And because of it, I have an unwavering belief in the holistic nature of life. So that understanding helps me navigate my life, and it helps me support my clients. Because the more we can understand what that really means and apply it, the easier it is. It helps us go with the essence of life, with the current, the natural current of life itself, as opposed to going against the current, which makes things get really hard sometimes. So we were talking about my time with the Mayans in Guatemala earlier, and I had a phrase here just to remind me to talk about what I call here my Mayan wake-up call. So when I was working doing the research, talking to the patients of my mentor, of my teacher every morning from Monday to Friday, that was my work, I had a list of research questions prepared to ask them. And in talking to them, I would say things like, okay, so when you came to see the healer because you have been in an accident, can you remember how the event, the accident, affected you emotionally. And I realized that they were not able to understand my question. And I thought, like, what is going on? Because it was not a matter of language. They either spoke Spanish, which I do too, is my first language, or in some cases, if they didn't speak Spanish, I had a translator from ThetaHealing Mayan to Spanish. But there was something not working. And so it took me a couple of these events to realize that, oh, they are so holistic that they can't really understand the difference between emotional and physical. Their physical injuries from an accident and their emotional injuries are difficult for them to differentiate. And so what I had to do is go back to my professor in Canada, who was supervising the research, and explain to her what I realized. And with her supervision, I changed my research questions so that I just asked them differently. I found a way to gather the information that I was looking for without trying to break everything up into different aspects of our being. And that worked. And then after that, I was able to, in a more psychotherapeutic way, inquire about what had happened for them at the time. And they didn't need to be pushed into the way that our minds work in the Western world. And so that was a big learning for me, because I realized how holistic they really are. They don't just talk about it, they actually live it. So that was very interesting. And and so in passing, I also want to mention to anybody watching that I am at this time designing a mentorship program. It will launch at some point, and if people want to send us their names, we can keep a waiting list and announce it when it's ready to be launched. But this mentorship program is about integration of many things in life, which includes the mental, the emotional, the psychospiritual, the physical, the social, the relational, and much more. So it will probably be done in groups, as well as having sort of individual sessions as part of the program. So okay, and then this is sort of leading to a really big theme for all of us nowadays. Is the current context in health and well-being that we're all immersed in, whether we know it or not. In fact, I have realized more and more that all of us are standing at a crossroads in our lives and also collectively. And it's the crossroads where we're basically contemplating a path of integration or disintegration. And the Chinese people have the same word for crisis and opportunity, and this is what we're facing at this time. Each one of us has to make a decision about this. Are we going to sort of integrate everything we've ever learned and commit to a path of wholeness? Or are we going to let ourselves fall apart? Because the number of pressures, stresses, and challenges that we're all faced with these days is absolutely unprecedented. We see it in our practice. Patrick and I talk to people from all over the world every day, because we mostly work online, wherever we are, whether we're home or traveling. We have clients in Europe, in the United States, in Canada, in South and Central America. And so we we have an opportunity to sort of keep a pulse of what's going on with humanity in general. And this is really what I see. And so to talk about, let's sort of now look at them backwards with bad news first and good news. I'll leave it for the end. So the disintegration is basically easy to observe in a lot of people, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, that has been so different, so challenging, so strange, so destabilizing for so many people at many different levels. Most of our viewers today, I'm sure, will have observed how much people's lives have been shaken up, if not their physical health, then their work lives or their relationships or their mental health. And so this is an easy one. And of course, disintegration is the product of not being able to connect all the parts of the self. So there's different language in, say, shamanism versus psychology, but in psychology, many people have heard the word disassociation, which is what happens when we're traumatized. So the self splits. It's a defense mechanism, but it ends up the different aspects of ourselves and that disconnecting with each other. And if we don't have a way of reconnecting these parts of the self, this is the result. Disintegration is a state of lack of cohesion, and it's actually pretty easy to see these days. That's why I think most of us, if not all of us, are or have been for a while encountering almost like two types of people in our midst. Either people that are very awake and very sort of connected overall, or people that are pretty asleep. And that is a sign of what I'm talking about here, integration or disintegration. Or in some cases, you see examples of people that are very functionally intelligent in some areas, and then you get onto a subject where that awareness and that intelligence doesn't seem to transfer very easily. There's a disconnection. There's a lack of logic. And that is, again, an example of how disintegration can manifest. So, and of course, without doing inner work and without looking at how we can reconnect all the parts of the self, and that includes everything we talked about today and more, it's very easy to succumb to the pressures of life and the sort of the traumatic nature of modern life, particularly in these last few years, where we've entered a new phase, a new chapter that is much, much more intense than anything that came before, at least for most people. So the other option is, of course, the path of integration or holism. And yes, it takes work. Yes, there's times when it gets uncomfortable having to face certain things that, we maybe some days would rather not have to. However, I can tell you, it's worth it. It is it's definitely the better choice. And this is a subject that I will go much deeper into at the conference in October. We have many different workshops and presentations that we could do between Patrick and myself. But this is definitely one that could become a very interesting and even interactive presentation at the workshop in Vilcabamba in October. So yeah, I wanted to leave you with that, and I'm sure Patrick has some slides as well, and some things he'd like to highlight about his work today. Yes, so in summary, we are all being faced with the biggest choice of our lives, both personally and collective these days. And the choice is really the path of integration or disintegration. For those that are willing to do the hard work, the personal work, and the integrated work of connecting all the parts of the self, all the sort of the runaway parts of ourselves that get sort of scared when we face trauma, shock, disappointment. The reward is a life of peace, inner peace and coherence. And of course, if we choose that path, we are helping the collective, we are helping humanity as a whole. And so both for the individual and the general future of humanity, this is the path that we hope most people take. And for those people, we are here, Patrick and I, to guide and support and be a safe place of healing, processing, and bringing all those pieces together for the benefit of all. The other option is, well, it's easy to see, it's easy to imagine, and we really hope that more and more people will wake up to the fact that we still have, all of us still have the opportunity to get on the path of integration and holism, and we hope that most people choose it. Certainly those that are participating in this conference, watching perhaps this interview today and then participating in the conference, we can tell that they're already very attracted to the path of integration and holism. And so we're basically here to say that there's support for that as well.
Thank you so much for that beautiful summary and insights right there. And I feel two reasons. One, I personally resonate with what you just said, Silvana, and I know many people will resonate with that too. We're at a crossroads in a moment in humanity, and each of us is constantly at crossroads in life of, can we step up to the plate and do the hard work? And it takes community to help each of us be supported to do that hard work. And also for the retreat context, which you took the words right out of my mouth, these are the type of people who are coming in October to the retreat or conference. And it is that type of collective. We just know that there's an attractor field for those kind of people who are seeking this. And they will be keenly interested. And we're here to create a container for 21 days for people to really do some deep work. And hopefully, and I know with both of your ongoing coaching work, people like you who can support people outside of just the 21 days, because change is not easy, right? And it takes time to integrate the change and to iterate on the change. So thank you for articulating that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we are looking at, Patrick, your slides that you wanted to share here. Please take it away.
Okay, so Silvana covered this already. That's our logo at the top. That's the website URL, holisticwellness.solutions. And then the image below that is the homepage of our site. And I wanted to touch on holism because it had a profound effect on the direction that I took with my health practice. So for me, I really got the concept of holism when I realized that all cells, bodily systems, and all parts of the self are not only connected, either directly or indirectly to each other, they are also affected either directly or indirectly by each other. So holism considers that an initial imbalance, as an example, let's say a food allergy that causes intestinal inflammation, can impact mental, emotional, electrical, magnetic, and energetic aspects of health. and vice versa. As a matter of fact, any of these aspects can be at the base of the food allergy that I used as an example. To emphasize this point, an integrative approach to wellness considers that none of these are actually separate. So that's what helped me to really understand holism. I was introduced to functional blood chemistry analysis 12 years ago by two of the pioneers, Dr. Dickon Weatherby and Dr. Scott Ferguson. And FBCA is a dramatically different way to understand regular blood tests that you get at your local clinical lab. FBCA uses what's called optimal ranges, not the reference ranges you find on a blood test result. Reference ranges are more to do with whether you're in full-blown disease state or not. With optimal ranges, if you're high or low, it can point to a variety of preconditions as well as actual imbalances. Blood test results that meet specific parameters are collated, and together groups of tests paint a picture, and this can include a specific diagnosis, how long something has been an issue, and even the level of risk. And functional blood chemistry analysis can identify subclinical issues years in advance. We use functional blood chemistry analysis with health history and symptoms to ensure that your recovery is safe and effective.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Patrick. And I think it is actually really helpful for people to see it on screen, because again, we covered such a variety of different topics and areas of deep study, that these areas that have, like I said, a lot of depth to them. And to see this, and I can tell for you, this blood analysis area, it feels like it's still evolving. As you said, that the science is still evolving. It's not like, oh, there's mastery, so now we're just going to kind of cookie cutter out the next, years of what your patient experiences look like. My sense is, with the science constantly evolving and you with your modalities evolving, you're probably still learning, I would imagine, as you go with the people who you treat.
Basically when COVID hit, a lot of health practitioners had to transition their practice worldwide. And we've taken more courses and more training from some of the most advanced practitioners in the world in the last 3 years than we could possibly ever have imagined prior to that. Why? Because all those people are also online. They're looking for health practitioners, as well as maybe even clients, to learn online. And so we are on the cutting, if you want to be, you're on the cutting edge with the top people in the world. And it's absolutely transformed not only functional blood chemistry analysis, but if you're in any modality, the progress has been made in the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years is more than everything else combined prior to that. And it's a very important part of our work to keep up. So we see clients for half a day, 5 days a week. And the other half a day, we're involved in doing research, and we're reading research, and we're involved in science, and we're involved in keeping up with the changes and the progress that's being made.
Absolutely. And you touched on such an important point that made me feel that this is all part of that inflection point, or that crossroads, that we as a species, us in our individual lives are here. It's not, oh, we're approaching. No, it's here right now. Never has there been more access to expertise. I just gave myself goosebumps. And we have opportunity. It's like, whoa, this is it coming, right through our conversation here. We have access to opportunity to learn the most advanced, I'll say, thinking, science, modalities, cultural, traditional, shamanic, realms. We have access to it, and we can't just have the experience through books and Zoom lectures, having the in-person community support, as we're all at this place of choosing. Are we going to lean in and support ourselves? Like you two are clearly demonstrated, you're advancing yourselves for the work that you do for others. And I thank you for that, because I know you love the work you do, but I also know it's not easy. It's really challenging to help people, a lot of whom are struggling with this inflection point of life that we're all facing right now.
Yes, so true.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I'm wondering if there's anything else either one of you want to add about your personal, background or modalities, but I'd love to maybe round out this conversation, bringing it back to the retreat that we're having in October. And I haven't done this yet on any of the interviews that I've done for our health and wellness retreat interview series. But in our conversation, I've realized there are so many different topics that each of you could lecture on or have workshops, interactive workshops on, also personal one-on-one sessions, private coaching and appointments with people. I would love to say, maybe you can speak to some of the things that you might envision or most intuitively feel could be a fit for this retreat. And for those who are watching, comment below and let us know what's sounding really applicable to you. And I think we can be a bit playful here because the retreat is not until October. We can see who are the people who are attending this retreat and what do they really want to have expert advice on. And I bet we'll get I bet we will even be surprised by some of the responses that we get from everyone listening, because everyone who watches these videos a lot, that we track all the comments, like we're listening, we do this content for you guys. So let us know what you think. And then whomever wants to start, just maybe share some ideas that you have of what could be some retreat conference content that you might be inspired to give.
Well, I help men with their health. And so I focus a lot on that. And there's really two other areas that I spend most of my time in. And one of those is to support clients with cognitive health. And Silvana and I work together on that. Obviously, with her experience, background, training, and mine, we combine so that it is truly holistic. And so we have more information on our website, but that's a specific area of focus and has been for over a decade.
Yes, they're in this area of interest and expertise developed when we lived in Cuenca for many years, and a lot of our clients were retirees from different parts of the world who wanted to take care of their cognitive and brain health, and they were also living at high elevation. So there was that added aspect of the challenges of living at high elevation. And so this brought on some different aspects of health that helped us develop this area. And in fact, we have given many presentations on this subject, and we could do one for this retreat as well.
Yeah.
So that's one.
And I'd love to just real briefly, before you move on to the other somewhat menu of ideas that we have, when you say cognitive health, can you describe what that means to you? Because I want to make sure everyone listening knows what you mean by cognitive health, because that can be interpreted a few different ways.
So it's actually cognitive emotional health, because they are connected, obviously, holism, nothing separate. And when we're dealing with issues with our client base, it's mostly from mild cognitive impairment called MCI through the different stages of dementia, and one of those is Alzheimer's. You can also have some impairment cognitively through Parkinson's or stroke. So there's a number of different diagnoses. There's a number of different factors that contribute to the impairment cognitively. But generally, most people will notice there's an issue when their memory starts to fail them, or when they find complex tasks or logistics more challenging. It can even be where they begin to notice that they brain fog, their language is changing, etc. So all these are different aspects that are under the umbrella term.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so we have a lot of suggestions to improve cognitive health and well-being that could be put into a workshop or group talk. We can see about that. And of course, as Patrick said, it is directly connected with emotional health, because of course, when people start noticing, or their relatives start noticing that their thinking is not as dynamic as before, or their memory is not as sharp, it can have a profound emotional impact. And and so we work with people directly and your family members, on all of that and more.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm sure that's landing with a lot of people. It's so important for our life and longevity. And so please continue with some of the other ideas that you have around retreat possibilities.
Yes. Well, there's of course workshops on nutrition that we could offer. We focus on an anti-inflammatory diet that is actually beneficial for everyone. It's holistic.
It's customized.
It's customized, and it also takes into account people's preferences according to their chosen lifestyle. So there's room for adapting it to also people's choices for whatever reason, with the idea of keeping it anti-inflammatory so that the body, the brain is supported to be as healthy as it can be. I also love women's health, so that there's an opportunity for that as well. And as I mentioned before, the Ama-Deus healing art of the Guarani people that I teach could also be offered during the conference. That's a 2-level course. So if we did that, we would probably have to do it in 2 or even or 3 days to make sure that we cover everything that we need to, and that would even allow people to get a certificate as practitioners in the technique. From South America, very shamanistic and very high consciousness, so that's a possibility.
And could you repeat, Silvana, sorry to interrupt, can you just repeat the name of that either workshop or the Indigenous group again? I just want to make sure everyone could hear it clearly.
Yes, so the Indigenous people didn't call it this, but there is a term that is being used for many decades now, and is spelled, is Ama-Deus. So A-M-A, Ama, and then dash Deus, D-E-U-S, which is God in Portuguese. It comes from the sort of the Brazilian area of the Guarani territory. There was a Brazilian man that received the teachings from the indigenous people, from the Guarani, and because he sort of carried on with the tradition, it has been identified as Ama-Deus healing. And if you actually look it up, anybody, they will find an Ama-Deus international group, which I'm connected with, which, you know, it explains more about what this is about, and also it has names of practitioners and instructors around the world. So this is not a well-known healing modality like, say, Reiki, but for some people that are interested in knowing more about how the indigenous people of the Americas, in this case South America, healed 6,000 years ago, it's an opportunity to learn, because there aren't many of us instructors in the world. There's maybe 20 something. I don't know if maybe 30, but not that many in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you for describing that. It's very appealing and very, very intriguing. Very, very intriguing is what I feel. And I'd love for you to continue if there were some other ideas that you, either one of you had.
So a lot of my work has to do with detoxing and cleansing. And this is a much deeper subject than I ever anticipated many years ago. I initially went on this path with mentorship and training from various people, but some of the most impactful have been Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt and Brian Artis. And it's profound work. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that at the base of most health issues, there is an emotional component. I'm talking about at the root. And at the same time, there's also an imbalance that has to do with the level of toxins or poisons that we're dealing with. And of course, our environment is inundated with toxins, and toxins create an environment where pathogens thrive. So we're dealing with more toxins and pathogens than we ever had before. And there's much that can be done, but you do have to pay attention to your general health and specific health of the intestinal tract, the kidneys, the liver. And there's a sequence, and there is a graduated process, and there are things that have to be taken into consideration in order to make it both safe and effective. So it's a deep subject. It's near and dear to my heart. I spend a lot of my time with my clients adding this piece to their recovery program, and it's very important these days.
Yeah, that would be a great presentation too. And there could be more ideas that we come up with. These are just some examples of what we could offer, depending, as you said, on the general interest of those that sign up for the conference in October.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I feel like that was, in movies, they call it the trailer or the teaser. I feel like you both just dangled a lot of teaser ideas for people. Again, comment below, go to Silvana and Patrick's website, see, learn more about them. And we want to be interactive with the people who come down here for the retreat. And like I said before, there's an attractor field. The right people are going to come and the right offering is going to be there. And this is something that I just have a deep trust in knowing of. So it's exciting. We'll see how it all unfolds and manifests for us here.
Wonderful.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chiyoko, and to the whole group.
We look forward to meeting them all. Everyone that is going to come to Vilcabamba.
Yes. And thank you for putting this together.
You're very welcome. I appreciate that. You're very welcome. And both of you shine with your passion and real deep wisdom. That's what I feel, a wisdom when you're speaking about these areas. So I'm just very happy to be able to be a conduit of sorts for people to come experience what it's like to work with you both.
Thanks,
Thank
Chiyoko.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, everybody, that is it for Silvana and Patrick. Thank you so much for watching this. We'll put links to everything we spoke about in the description below. Once again, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and the bell so that you can be notified when we have more amazing interviews like this. So that's it for now. Ciao. Thank you all.
Ciao. Until next time.
Until next time.